first time I was trying to create websites were just painful.
How has Searchie allowed you to reimagine the future of your online business?
Two things about Searchie I love and adore. Being able to build these hubs very easily, especially now, super easy to use and adapt. And the other thing that I love, the search bar, the ability to search just my content for a key term has been so useful. The students love it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful session of our Searchie Spotlight interviews. I am here today with Jean. Jean, how's it going today?
It's going awesome. It's springtime. I'm excited for all the flowers to start coming up because flowers are part of what I do.
I love that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jean. I think that with this topic of spring also comes a lot of growth. So I'm super excited for our entire Searchie community to learn a lot more about what you do and what flowers have to do with that. So I'd love if you could start us off with a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Jean Haley. I am a fiber artist. And I serve wool crafters, mostly specifically rug hookers. I get to call myself a hooker, thanks to my mom, which is loads of fun because she taught me how. So yeah, I serve wool crafters and rug hookers, and I help them increase the sustainability of their practice, their art practice, by teaching them how to do natural dyes. And so flowers figure into that and plants figure right into that. So my whole front yard is a dye garden. So I grow color there. And if it doesn't give me color or it doesn't attract a beneficial like butterflies and bees, then it doesn't belong in my garden.
I love that. And I'm so happy that you mentioned this theme of sustainability as well, because it is something that I think we see, of course, in the natural world, be it dyes that we get through flowers, then also in the digital space as well. So you mentioned that you do have a focus on sustainability specifically. So how do you serve your market in terms of helping them and guiding them along this path towards sustainability?
So I do that mostly through a front end workshop with a back end membership. And all of that is housed on Searchie, because why would I go anywhere else, really? I've been with Searchie for several years now, and I've tried other things, but it's just really the perfect place. So I serve them through an online course, and I teach them how to use their natural dyes. I teach them how to actually find natural dyes in their own environment, meaning at home. And even if you're in a city, there's going to be plants that you can use to dye. And then at the end of the workshop, it's an 8-week workshop. And at the end of the workshop, if they want to keep on this journey with me, or say they didn't finish the course during the 8-week period, they are invited into the membership, which is an ongoing membership, a monthly membership called the Naturally Dyed Wool Community. And we do different experiments every month. I provide them with a tutorial on some new technique that's out there in the natural dye world. So that's how I do that.
Amazing. And I want to go back to what you were saying in terms of starting off with a front end workshop, because I know that you also host in-person workshops. So, working with dyes and fibers, a lot of that has to do with a very physical space, a very physical workshop. So what inspired you to create an online presence from these, roots, pun intended, in the physical and gardening world?
So that's a great question. I think that probably a very common answer right now is going to be the COVID, but I actually had started planning to go online before the COVID hit. And this is because I do teach in-person classes. I do have a physical studio here, and I love my studio and I love teaching there. But the problem for me was getting my schedule to jive with everybody else's schedule, right? So I would plan these classes and schedule them and advertise them. And I would have so many people telling me that, oh, I really want to do that, but that's a bad time, or I can't make it on that Saturday, or that Wednesday doesn't work for me, or, whatever. And so that's when I started figuring out that I need to get online. And I'm also very limited. I live in a town of, 80 to 150,000 people, depending on whether or not school's in session. I live in a college town. And, it's once you get out to however many people are there, you're kind of done. So the internet is the way to go. So I had started planning these, and as I was doing that research and figuring things out, I had found Stu McLaren, and at the time it was Tribe, now TME. And that's what kind of took me down this route of going, oh, I could do a front end membership, a front end course with a back end membership. But yeah, so it was really about scheduling and getting people to be able to be there at the right time. With the online course, they're recorded sessions. So I have several modules, and they can go through those at any time that's convenient to them. That's the beauty of that, right? And then we get together and have a live Q&A, and I can record those and post those in my hub if they can't make it to a specific Q&A. But it's really, the internet is just perfect for providing that convenience for people, and especially for my people, because if you're working in your kitchen, you don't want your dye stuff anywhere near your food stuff. So you have to be able to do it at a time when you're not about to prepare a meal. And so it's important that it's at a time that's, convenient to you. So,
Jean, I love that you mentioned scheduling, because this was actually the next question that I wanted to ask you about. With online businesses, there is sometimes, a big challenge where people have, content that they now have to create for an online business. And a lot of that revolves around scheduling. And it's especially important, I think, to reduce overwhelm with how you create content. But I think there's another element here as well, where your work is creative by nature as well. So there's this, double, priority here, where we need to manage that content schedule, to manage that schedule to not only reduce content overwhelm, but also to protect your creative process. So what have you found, or what strategies have really worked for you in terms of designing an online business in a way that still, encourages you to be excited about the content that you're creating?
So that's a great question. I have each class that I have comes through inspires me in some way. And I learn things each time, even though I'm the teacher. And I think most teachers will say that, my students are also feeding me in terms of my knowledge.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you manage your content creation schedule, where on one end, it allows you to stick to a good schedule where you're reducing content overwhelm. And as you grow your business, you're not growing, your work demand. And then on the other hand, the importance of keeping a content creation schedule to protect your creative process as well. Because, I think a lot of people lose themselves in that content sometimes, and it means that their creative process suffers at times, or they feel demotivated. And I'd just love to hear about any strategies that you have had that maybe have really worked for you in terms of preserving your time and your creative energy.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So, it is a juggle, and there are definitely times where time for my own creativity suffers when, launch and all the things, and it's getting better with time. I think that no matter who you are or what you do, if you're a creative, at the beginning, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on the business and less time on your own creative pursuit. But for me, that was okay, because I was still, teaching, which I just love to do. So that helps. And I was just a few weeks ahead of my first students. Like literally, I was, recording modules a couple of weeks before they were going live that very first time. But now those modules are recorded. And so, and I've been teaching it for a couple of years now. I am going to probably re-record them in a bit. But now that that's done, I just have to show up once a week to live Q&A, and I have to show up into my Facebook group at least daily. I'm usually in there a little bit more at the very beginning or during times when I know they have a lot of questions. And so that right there just automatically freed up my time to do other things and different things. As for the membership, once a month, I was afraid of getting on that hamster wheel. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna, what if and I'm gonna run out of ideas and all the things, right? But it's really, if you've got good people in your group, they're going to keep feeding you new ideas on what it is that they're interested in learning. And then if it's not something I know how to do, I can go out and research that. And that's going to keep me engaged because it's going to be something I'm also interested in. And it's just one piece of content a month for those guys. It's just one tutorial a month that drops on the first Monday. And then the second Monday and the fourth Monday, we have a live Q&A. And so really that's not a lot of work. I don't have a really high ticket membership by any stretch. But I think that it's just enough because also my people I feel are busy enough that they don't want more than that. We always think more is better, but it's not. And one thing that happened to me that I learned from my students, I got feedback from them that they really needed it to be longer. It was originally a 6-week course, and I had built in an implementation week in the middle. And I learned that from Stu and TME, that those implementation weeks are critical because there's nothing worse than signing up for a course, or they're probably all worse things, but it's a really terrible feeling when you sign up for a course and then you get behind and then you get really behind and then you're never going to catch up and then you're never going to finish it. And that's a super bummer drag. And so I don't want my students to ever feel like that's going to happen to them. So I split up one of the modules, and then I brought in another implementation week. So it's now an 8-week course, the same content. I just had to split one of the modules in half. And so it was pretty easy to do. And it gives them more time to work their way through the topics as well. So I chased a few squirrels there.
I think that was a perfect answer, Jean, because I'm seeing a lot of elements of you repurposing some of that core content, go back to that initial, priority of sustainability as well, where, you said this yourself, but sometimes people think that, more is a better thing, where it's not always a better thing. It's not always a better option. And in fact, there's a lot more value to scaling back on how much content you produce, because it does open up the opportunity to implement the feedback that you're getting from your students as well. And you mentioned, adding an additional implementation session. And I feel like that's a really, really powerful example of how we can make sure that we're creating that content creation schedule around, those prompts for feedback to make sure that we're serving our members better and that we're not giving them, a reason to get overwhelmed as well.
Yeah. And it's when and I think that this is true for most things, when you're learning how to do something new, those of us who've been doing it for a while, it's like some of the things that we do are just rote. But when you're first learning it, there are so many details that it's hard to keep track of all the details. And so me being there to help them say, okay, these are the 3 of those 7,000 details that you need to focus on right now, and kind of helping them guide through, because there's just so many details that we get lost in there, and having somebody hold our hand through and giving us that time, I have found is really important.
Speaking of importance as well, I wanted to chat a little bit about how you personally have maybe benefited from the shift to an online model. You've talked in your previous answers about how you've designed some of your content and your programs as well to limit the time that you need to be, recording new content, and shifting your focus towards a Q&A session allows you to not have to spend too much time on a recurring basis creating, original new content. So with all of this, newfound free time, how have you benefited personally from adapting this online business model?
Well, like everybody who starts doing this, we'd love to say that we have more time with family and friends. And I don't have kids, but I have found a little bit more time for doing my own art, which is keeps me sane, frankly. It makes me a better human and an easier human to be around when I'm actually able to do art, at least regularly. So that's been one thing. It's helped my mental stability for sure. I also have another job. So I'm working two businesses right now until I can transition. What this is really helping me do is be able to transition to doing art full time. Without this online ability, I wouldn't even have the hope of doing that. And so I would just still be doing, data all day, which, yay data, but, yay art. So yeah, I'd say that it's given me more time to do some of my art. I have a show coming up actually in a couple of months, and it afforded me the time to collaborate with another artist. And so we have a show going up in a gallery that'll be up for the month of June. And so that's kind of exciting. It's given me the time to be able to collaborate with other artists to put up a show. So that was kind of fun.
That's amazing. Well, first off, congratulations on the show. I look forward to seeing some pictures of that in June. That sounds like an amazing opportunity, not only to showcase your art, but I think also, as you said, to collaborate with other like-minded, artists as well. And I love this, concept of full-time art for you, because I think that a lot of creatives, feel like adapting an online approach can sometimes mean that there's a loss for their art. But I think that with some good, content management, anyone can really free up more time to invest in their art. And I think that at the end of the day also makes us better teachers as well, because it gives us more time to dedicate to the craft, to refine those details, which, as you mentioned, there's lots of. So I think it, just like you said, just in terms of that sanity, and also in terms of making sure that you're getting back to the things that you love the most. So I wanted to wrap up this interview with one question about Searchie specifically, which is, we've talked a lot about how adding an online approach to your creative-based business has allowed you to lean into that concept of sustainability that you've already been teaching your members. How has Searchie allowed you to reimagine the future of your online business and your business in general?
Two things about Searchie that I love and adore are being able to build these hubs very easily, especially now with Searchie 2.0 and the templates that are there that are super easy to use and adapt. The other thing that I love is the search bar. And, in natural dyes, there's a lot of these weird terms that, people are new to. And so having the ability to just go in there and search just my content for that class, for a key term, so that they can go back and watch something, has been so useful, and the students love it. The being able to create a hub that actually looks good, because I tell you what, I tried, I've been on the interwebs for a while. You can see my gray hairs. I've been here for a while on the planet. And first time I was trying to create websites were just painful. And now I know that there's websites that are point and click and all of that, and really easy to build. But even still, my regular website, I had to pay somebody else to look as good as my Searchie website was that I built. It's a great platform for anybody who's teaching or doing memberships, especially for, anybody who's got to be able to search. That search bar is just unbelievable. I know I'm kind of rambling on at this point, but when I explain it to my group of people, because many of them are my age and older. So most of my clients are, and customers and students are anywhere from, 50 to 80. So these are not tech savvy people. They have a hard time with email. So I need a platform that they can actually get in and use. And I liken that search bar to back in the 70s when we had actual cassette tapes, and we would constantly be hitting the fast forward and rewind to try to find that one song. and it was, mind numbing. It was terrible. And as soon as I say that, everybody lights up because they all did that. We've all did that. It's like, and it took forever to find that one song. And so being able to do that in Searchie with like, oh, I'm going to search alum and see where that is. Or what about Mordant, find out where that was. And that it brings it right up to where it was in that video is just so priceless. It's been so valuable for my students. I don't know that, I know there's a bunch of other platforms that are out there, but I don't know that any of them could come close to just even being able to do that. And then building the site is just so easy. And the other thing about Searchie, I have to say, is the customer service is killer. You get real humans who are interested in helping you and making sure that you're going to fix your problem. I've gone around on a couple of things that were little weird tweaks that happened. And, the folks on the help desk were just right there with me trying to figure out what had happened and fix the problem. And then, moving on, and super responsive, which I really appreciate as an older user of the technology.
I love that, Jean. And I love especially that, you were able to loop in this cassette analogy for the value of being able to fully digest all of the content that you're giving your students. I find that, both on the teacher and on the student side, it's incredibly useful when you're trying to master, a very technical, very hard skill, to be able to have that toolkit with you to help you, navigate through that content and also make the most of that craft as well. So I feel like all of these things definitely connect to allow us to serve a lot of artists and creative people like yourself. And I'm so happy to hear that, you've been able to open up additional time to go back to your art and your craft, and hopefully, plant a couple more things in your dye garden out back. And I wanted to thank you for joining us today. It's been super lovely chatting with you about all of the things relating to art and sustainability and Searchie. Of course, I would say those are three of my favorite things. So Jean, thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us today. And if people are looking to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you do, where can they reach you?
They can reach me at jeanhaleydesign.com. That's JeanHaley design.com. Or you can find me on Instagram at jean.haley, or on the Facebook at Jean Haley Design.
Amazing. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Paulina. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.